everyone. My name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space for all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We have a thought piece that we just dropped this past Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available wherever podcasts are playing, and we provided you with access to a few links down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental health. And the conversation around mental health this week, I want to talk about my ongoing scenario. So the situation that I mentioned in the last 3 videos about me getting stalked by my professor and how that escalated into gang stalking involving Alex Lamb, who was an RCMP officer in Canada, some people who were commissioned to support. And so it's been a myriad of different individuals, different countries, and different high pressure, highly intense situations over the last 4 years until this point. And so finally I did speak up about what was taking place, and unfortunately 2 of the 3 videos have already been taken down. Now, I have appealed those videos and I do hope that they do go back up. I was very clear and explicit around how I wasn't breaking any privacy laws by talking about my personal experience, but if you have any feedback on how I can get those videos back up, even now I try to upload the videos and I'm running into interference as that takes place. I don't know what the root of it is yet, because I've never actually had my videos taken down before now. I want to just quickly have a conversation around a blog that I did post in relation to the same topic, and I really was riding the wave. So there is a trend going around I'm talking about the bear versus the man. And so I used that trend. I did a spin-off of that trend to talk about my situation and how, because of my situation, even before my situation, I would choose the bear, just because I feel like the odds are in my favor if I'm countering instinct with conscious predatory behavior. And I do think that there is a difference between dealing with a predator in a wild who's still only driven by instinct. Like, if he's not hungry, if he is not hungry for me, like, there's so many different scenarios where I can walk out of that situation okay. Whereas if you're dealing with a predatory man, I mean, I don't know how many of those scenarios where I've walked away unscathed. And again, it's been on a spectrum, but it's significantly more dangerous because it's not instinct, it's not about hunger, it's about power. And if it's about power, then you have to understand that the game is just different. The stakes are just very, very high. There's not a whole heck of a lot that you can grapple with in order to even out the playing field, right? So when it is a power dynamic taking place where there is a physical, also biological power strength differentiation. And so I was just using that as a spin-off to bring more light to my personal situation. But what I saw taking place and what I hope my sharing my experience won't enable is having conversation and rhetoric around how we avoid and how we invite a certain behavior. And I think that there's just too much normalizing of victim blaming, and part of why I stayed quiet for so long was because I felt that there would be some way, somehow, someone would want to blame me for the predicament that I was in. And I think that victim blaming, I have done enough of that. I have done enough of blaming myself and holding myself accountable more than I believe now that I am to the situation that has taken place. There's a whole heck of a lot that we can criticize and judge with hindsight, but if you do not know you're walking into a trap, then how can you mitigate that until you're in the trap? At that point, you're just figuring out ways to get out of it. And so I don't want to ever perpetuate any kind of conversation that makes people feel empowered to other the individuals who've been victimized. I think that people who have been victimized have been silenced to such an extent that many of us are walking among victimized individuals and will never know, because those individuals have learned to play the game and to play and to be quiet and to suffer in silence. And a lot of why people choose to suffer in silence is because of mentality, where we blame the victim for the circumstances that they find themselves in. And a lot of that is just trying to find control where it doesn't exist and wanting to give yourself a sense of assurance that you would never fall into that same situation because you behave in A, B, and C. And so I was that person. That was the trap that kept me from seeing all of the red flags that I see in hindsight, walking into a trap. And so because of that, I find it a little bit, it's a kind of conversation that really does definitely create an emotional response in me. I do feel emotional when I see that, because I recognize to what extent that mentality created blind spots that made me just more easy and more susceptible to manipulate. And so I want us all to really think about the fact that it doesn't really matter how we show up. If we're targeted by someone who is equipped, who has the means, and who has the cunning and sort of the intelligence to try to ensnare you and to entangle you, and who has that conviction where he just does not have any intention of letting you go, there's not a lot that you can do to avoid that situation. It's just about figuring out the best way to fight against it. But I do not ever want to create a platform where people feel comfortable blaming those who are already suffering the violence by the hands of the people around them. And so while this isn't a relationship sort of violence that I've endured, I think that there's not a whole heck of a lot that we know about stalking. I did not know, nor did I have any periphery on how terrifying stalking is and how different it is from other forms of violence against women. And so I learned a little bit about that while in the programs for women escaping violence, but a lot of it I've learned just in my own experience, because a lot of me trying to rationalize this behavior was trying to compare it to behaviors of men that I was in relationships with. But this isn't the same kind of relationship. It wasn't a romantic relationship. It was platonic, but there's, I think with mentor-mentee relationships, there's still a certain power dynamic there that I was trying to respect and I was trying to build the relationship around, but he didn't want that. And so I want to just come on here and talk a little bit about making sure that when we think about those who have endured violence at the hands of men who were in positions of power, that we don't find a way to spin that narrative to make the woman seem as if she was asking for it. Because I can tell you that no part of me wanted this, and I don't think any part of any woman who's endured violence for any period of time was looking for it. They were not. And I think a lot of the time there's so much harmless behavior that I used to engage in. I used to be super playful, and I learned just how dangerous playfulness can be, because you never know how someone is going to interpret that behavior. And I've become so cautious because of all of the ways that my personality, I felt, attracted attention that I no longer want. If it's not from my partner, I do not want that attention at all. And to some extent, I feel almost injured by attention. Like when I'm walking in the streets and I catch attention, I have to really make sure that my mind doesn't go to a place that everyone who's looking at me is looking to harm me, right? And I have to really talk myself down and off that ledge, despite the fact that it makes sense that my brain is going there if I've been stalked by a bunch of different faces in different places, in different languages even, all around the world, right? So the fact that my brain is trying to build out these heuristics to help me feel safer, and I have to counter those heuristics with like cognition and be like, well, you know what, in some cases I've been right and someone looking at me was definitely following me and being inappropriate and making me feel uncomfortable and unsafe. But other times, just people being curious, right? And it's really hard when you've survived trauma to demarcate between someone who is a threat and someone who's just being curious. So I think all of that to say, I don't want this to be a rant. I don't want this to be, and I just want this to be educational. I want this to be informative, and I want this to be just an FYI for those of you who are speaking candidly about how you feel about violence against women and women's roles in violence against women. Let's just be mindful of how triggering some of the commentary can be for women who are still healing and still surviving violence in and of itself. So I think if we can be a little bit empathetic and put ourselves in the shoes of someone who is enduring and surviving violence, maybe it will help us to be more conscientious and intentional about our word choice and about the ways that we choose to frame things. And so I'm trying to stay hopeful. I am so happy again that I do have community behind me supporting me in all of this, but the 2 videos going down has definitely been a bit deflating, and I'm trying to just keep a balanced perspective, and I know that there's different ways to get this message out there, and that it's gotten out there enough that hopefully action is being taken. But it's just a lot. It's a lot in a week, a lot of highs and lows. It's been an emotional roller coaster altogether, but I do want to keep giving you updates, even if the updates is that I really am not sure what's going on. I don't know. The videos are going down, and that is deflating, but I know that you're all still watching, you're all still curious, and that gives me a little bit of hope that if I still have people who are worried and who care enough to watch, that this thing is closer to over than I think. So that's really what I wanted to come on here and talk about. Hopefully it is food for thought for you, and I hope to talk to all of you and give you a different update very soon.